So in the late 90s, when digital cameras were starting to become the new normal, there was this wave of fully automated film cameras that could basically do everything a digital one could, but still gave you a film image. And that was how we got the Mamiya 645 AFD, released in 2001, and at the time it was also only the second autofocus camera that Mamiya ever made, and it is also compatible with digital backs, so you can shoot film and digital with this camera. So this shoots 120 medium format film in a 645 format, which is the smallest format you can shoot on a roll of 120, and because of that you were able to get 16 shots out of a roll on this camera, which is nice when you compare it to a 6x7 where you usually get 10 shots per roll. I'm currently renting this camera from my school along with two lenses, a 55mm and an 80, so I shot a roll for each lens. And then also, this is the first film camera that I've shot with that has autofocus built into it, so I wanted to try that out. So the first roll that I shot with the 55mm, I also shot entirely with the autofocus. Now at times, the 55mm lens felt too wide for the things that I was shooting, and I kind of just couldn't wait to switch over to the 80 because I knew that was going to be a better focal range for me. And then with the autofocus on the camera, it did a pretty good job because all my images are in focus, but I still did have a hard time trusting it, even though I usually don't have a problem trusting autofocus when I shoot digital. But I kind of just think it's because film, you only, get a certain amount of shots per roll, so you don't want to mess it up. So I just like to take my time more and kind of trust myself more than I would trust the camera. But once I switched to the 80mm lens and manual focus, shooting that second roll was definitely a lot more enjoyable. Like I mentioned earlier, you can shoot this camera fully automated, where you let the camera do everything for you, except actually take the picture, or if you want, you can do different exposure settings, like shutter or aperture priority, where you get to pick things like either your shutter speed or your aperture, and then the camera does everything else, or if you want, you can just shoot it fully manual, which is what I did. The camera also automatically winds the film for you, and you can even do multiple exposures just by flipping the switch on the left side of it to stop it from automatically winding, which is kind of a cool feature that they thought of adding, even though I didn't try it out. But I did actually have a good time shooting with this camera. Definitely preferred the 80mm lens over the 55, And then I kind of just, was happy sticking with the manual focus, but I could see where autofocus could come in handy in certain situations. And maybe one day in time I actually will get an autofocus film camera. But another good thing about the camera was just the 16 shots per roll. So you really do get the most out of a roll of 120. And kind of, if you happen to not like one of your shots, it's definitely a better feeling having, 16 than when you're shooting, 6x7 and you only get 10 shots per roll. This camera is also a great first camera to get if you are new to film photography, because if you are scared about anything, the fully automatic system of it will, take away any concerns you may have jumping into film. And then also, just slowly over time, you can start working your way into some manual settings, like, aperture priority or shutter priority, where you do get to pick some things, but then the camera kind of takes over for you. And then, once you're comfortable with those, you can kind of make your way finally over into a fully, manual camera.